It's the first of the year. Everything's moving direct. Do you have any more excuses to not make the changes in your life that you want to see? Welcome back to the Astrology Report. My name is Cam White. This time it is for January 1st, 2024. It feels so good to finally be able to say that through January 7th of 2024. As you guys can probably tell, I'm shooting I've been typically shooting on 35 millimeter, and I forgot that I adjusted it to 24 millimeter. I think I might go back to 24 millimeter. I think it actually looks a little bit good. I just didn't do it for the longest time because you can kind of see my bed right here. This is a big studio, and I just didn't want to see I didn't want to have my bed in the frame. I felt like that was unprofessional. But if you're wondering, yes, it is on the floor. It is a traditional Japanese bed. It's a shiki futon. Floor sleeping is the move. Beds are a scam. You should look into it. But let's go ahead and get started with the week. January 1st, we're starting the new year off on a really good, just a really good note. Number one, the moon is going to be making a trine to Uranus while it is in Virgo. I believe I need to double check that because I forgot already. The moon's in Virgo, right? Yeah, the moon's in Virgo making a trine to Uranus. Moon in Virgo, what a time to have a moon in Virgo than the beginning of the year, because as you guys know, I always talk about it being about organization, planning, details. I think while the moon's in Virgo and we're wanting to be a little bit more specific, more nitpicky, I think that's fine. I think as the moon trines Uranus, as usual, there is some sort of unforeseen circumstance that comes up that could be beneficial. Again, some new way of organization, some new way of planning, some new innovative way of doing things, right? The moon trining Uranus is like inspirational, voluntary action that you take that ends up working out in your favor. We like harmonious trines, or I should say harmonious aspects to Uranus. They play out in our favor. Harsher aspects like squares and oppositions to Uranus are much more disruptive and not as favorable. But the two big things that we have going on Monday are, number one, we have Mercury stationing direct. Let's just go ahead and talk about that first. Mercury stationing direct in Sagittarius is essentially, I think about this a lot doing astrology. When I played PLD, for you guys that don't know, I've talked a lot about the personal development programs I've taken. Some of you probably have heard of PLD. I have a lot of different opinions about it, but anyway, long story short, it was like a 90-day long game where it's like you make goals and you hit them essentially. And in this game, a saying, there's a lot of different quotes or like a lot of different sayings people will like say to you to motivate you or to like call you on your bullshit. And one of them is now is good. Like, when you're like, oh, like, I want to do this, but it's, like I've got this going on, and people are just like, now is good. Like, now is the best time. With Mercury stationing direct in Sagittarius, it can feel as if you do not have all of your shit together. You don't have all of the plans in order. You don't have everything organized the way that you want to, but it's time to move forward. I mean, getting everything together was what Mercury retrograde was for. And even though Mercury's direct in Sagittarius, and it maybe is in detriment, you're not going to have everything that you need. But that's like not what life is about. It's not about preparing exactly for every single moment that, and having everything just prepared exactly the way that you want it to be for every single moment of your life. It's just about going with it. And oftentimes when you are more concerned with getting going than you are with it being perfect, the better you're going to do. In fact, this is something I learned recently. I don't know how true this is because I heard this again from someone else. I actually think it was Alex Hormozy. And I got a lot of comments on a weekly horoscope, the last one or the time before. Alex Hormozy is Alex, Hormozi. He's like a business kind of guy, but God, there's a lot of personal development nuggies that he puts in his content. And anyway, he talked about there was a study that was done and it was two groups of kids, and one group of kids had to make the perfect vase through ceramic pottery, right? Like the turning of the wheel stuff. And the other group of kids had to make the most amount of vases they can do in a certain amount of time. And what they found was that you would think the kids that had to focus on making the best amount of the best pottery that they could, or the best vase that they could, would make a better one. But what they ended up finding out is that the kids that actually were focused on quantity actually made a better vase. And this is kind of the saying quality over quantity. Quality comes with quantity. The more that you do, the better that you'll get at it. And this is kind of where I'm getting at with Mercury stationing direct in Sagittarius is it doesn't have to be perfect. You just need to do it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be exactly the way you envisioned. You just have to get things going. And Mercury in Sagittarius, while it's stationing direct, is all right, I want to move forward, but I don't have this and I don't have that. That's fine. Just breathe and keep going. The other thing that we have on Monday is Venus is in Sagittarius now, making a square to Saturn. This is a little rough to start the new year off with. Venus square Saturn is like, again, the fun planet, squaring the planet of, not fun things. While Venus is in Sag and she's much more about, again, exploration, being adventurous, being, unrestrained is maybe a fun way to put it. With her squaring Saturn, I feel like it'd be really easy to delineate this as, oh, this isn't going to be fun. Oh, you're not going to have a fun time. But the way I look at it is like with Saturn and Pisces, there's so many unknown variables that are going on right now. Saturn and Pisces is, again, like obfuscate, or especially Saturn with Neptune, like obfuscating the truth. What reality is distorted or not necessarily clean cut. With Venus squaring Saturn, the way I look at this, because Venus is in the superior position here, if you're not familiar with what the superior position means, it's when the planet making an aspect to another planet is in the 10th house from that planet. So like if you were to turn this chart as Pisces rising, Venus would be in the 10th house from Saturn. Venus is in the superior position. Venus is applying to Saturn. The way I would frame this is like, rather than being so, anxious or depressed about the unknowns, how about you just have fun with the unknowns? Like, it is okay to not know. And this is the thing, this is what's super fun about doing astrology is the two things I just said. It's like, one, you can't plan and prep for everything. You just have to go anyway. This is why I'm like not the biggest like election astrologer. And I kind of think election is a waste of time for 90% of people. Like if you want to start a business and you want to get married, those are important things. But people just elect every little tiny thing in astrology. And it's just like, it reminds me of the South Park scene where they're like sniffing their own farts. It's like, if you are divinely inspired to do something, then now is good. Trying to wait and to plan and prepare for every little tiny thing isn't always going to be the best use of your time. And sometimes now is the best time to do things. And again, this is all within fair balance. Maybe you shouldn't be impulsive about every little tiny thing you do, but that also means you shouldn't plan and prep every little tiny action that you take. But with Venus squaring Saturn, the other thing what I was saying is like, you just kind of have to have fun with the unknown. The reason I was kind of joking about it is, with astrology, we're all concerned about the future. We're all concerned about what's going to happen in our lives, what's going to happen in the next day, week, year. But with Venus squaring Saturn, it's like there's a moment where while you want to be adventurous, there's a contraction that makes you want to be, that makes you hesitate because of the unknown. And I just think the way out of that is like, you should just have fun anyway. Like Venus squaring Saturn, it might be difficult to have fun. It might be difficult to receive pleasure. There might be denials of pleasure. There might be denials of, again, like love, romance. But I do think with Venus squaring, at least Venus in the superior position in Sag is like, just let it roll off your shoulders. And don't be so consumed with like, again, the darkness and like, oh, well, I don't know how this is going to go. And I don't know how that's going to go. It's like, well, have fun with what you're doing right now. And I think that's just a good way to look at the start of this year. Like, wouldn't you want to start this year off on a new frame of mind in terms of how you navigate hard or challenging times? Then we go into Tuesday. On Tuesday, the moon, while it's still in Virgo, is going to make a square to Mercury. It will then go opposite Neptune. It will then square Mars, and then it will ingress into Libra. So I think Tuesday, doing all the things I just said for Monday, will be a lot more difficult because I think with the moon making a square to Mercury, the moon in Virgo feels like it needs, like, I've made this joke before and a lot of you commend me on it because I think it's just funny. Like the difference between Virgo and Sag is Virgo's like, I need all my little preps to go hiking and I need my sunscreen and my granola bars and my compass and Sagittarius is already a mile down the path. What's funny to that to me is like the moon in Virgo squaring Mercury and Sagittarius is like, you don't need those like tiny things for this trip, but they make you feel comfortable. They make you feel safe. And I think with the moon in Virgo making a square to Mercury and Sag is like, again, these creature comforts of, if I have X, Y, and Z all laid out and organized, I will feel more comfortable. I will feel more safe. This is why I talk a lot about the moon in Virgo being good for like cleaning and organizing because it makes you feel more organized. It makes you feel better. But with it making the square to Mercury and Sag, it's just like, at some point you got to go. At some point you got to just move things on. And maybe this is a good, like there's times where, when maybe you can't get every little thing checked off the list that you want, but because you're checking that list, you go, shit, I almost forgot this, and that would have been really important. That's the moon square Mercury. But then the moon goes opposite Neptune, and what I love about all the Sag stuff, continuing with this analogy of the hike, is the moon going opposite Neptune is like, let's say you just like leave for the hike, and the moon opposite Neptune is like, did I fucking forget something? Is there something I'm not aware of? What am I not seeing? Like the moon in Virgo opposite Neptune in Pisces is like, you don't know what you don't know. When I went to California for Christmas to go see my family, I forgot something. I don't even remember what it was, but I didn't remember until the second I needed it. And even though like I packed, I planned, it was like, I'm usually pretty simple. I get things, that I typically need, nothing too crazy. But I got there and I was like, and I needed it for, I needed something for something. And I realized, oh, I didn't have that. I just think the moon in Virgo opposite Neptune is a level of like not having the awareness that something's missing and having that feeling maybe there, but like you're not really going to get the solution. And then the moon in Virgo makes that square to Mars in Sag, where you can get frustrated if you want to, but does it help you or does it help anybody else? That let's say you forgot something. That moon in Virgo is like, again, squaring Mars and Sagittarius. You were so concerned with making sure you get to the airport on time or that you had to go, that you forgot this and that, and now your whole trip is ruined. Like that moon in Virgo squaring Mars and Sag is very like, I'm frustrated and I'm emotionally distraught because the pace of which things were going were not conducive to my ability to be prepared for this situation. Another way you can look at it is like if you have a presentation at work or at school, it's like, you could prepare all day long, but then as you're about to go up, you realize you forgot something and you can get frustrated with it or just say, okay, we're just going to roll with it. It's really that simple. Like this is why I like doing astrology, is because it's so, like, in my opinion, all of this shit is such a perfect tool for personal development. It's like, catch yourself on Tuesday being frustrated about not being prepared enough or not having the exact things in order the way that you want because things were just going too fast or you were going too fast or you were too ahead of yourself, and either get frustrated with it and be pouty or surrender to it and just be like, oh, I fucked up. Well, how can we turn the situation around to where it's still going to benefit you and work? And maybe that's what the moon ingressing into Libra is good for on Tuesday. It's just like, you know what? Everything's balanced. Everything's fair. Let me just connect with the people that are here. It's the same thing when you're doing presentations. Like, it doesn't matter how well you do a keynote. You want to connect with your audience. Doesn't matter how good the presentation is. The biggest thing is connecting with the audience. The biggest thing is, again, making those just connections. I think with the moon in Libra, as our emotions are a little bit more concerned with our relationships in our life, with balance, with peace, with order. That's the biggest thing. It's like, okay, let's say you went on a trip on January 2nd and you forgot a bunch of stuff. Are you going to kill the vibe for yourself and everyone else there? It's like, no, like, get over yourself. Have a little bit of fun while you're there and just enjoy what you've got and figure it out. Like, I think that's the easiest way to go on Tuesday. It's just that it's a process to get there. I don't think you're going to wake up and be like, I'm just going to enjoy how things go. You'll be like, oh, I'm not sure what I need to go. I'm not sure what I need to get. You leave, then you go, I feel like I forgot something. And then you realize, oh my gosh, I was in too much of a pace. I forgot, you're already halfway through towards the airport. You realize you forgot your boarding pass because for whatever reason, you're still printing your boarding pass. So you have to turn back around. That sort of a thing. You just have to go with the flow on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, as the moon's in Libra, it is sextiling Venus and Sag. Let's continue with this travel analogy, because I just feel like the moon in Libra sextiling Venus and Sag is, I will be honest, it has been a while since I've sat next to someone in an airplane that was actually fun to talk to. I don't know if it's because everyone's on their phones and everyone's checked out, or if it's because I mainly fly Frontier. You just can't convince me I can get a ticket from Denver to LAX or to Las Vegas for like $50 or pay $350 for United. Like, it's the same flight. It's a shitty 2.5 hour flight. What's the difference? I get an inch more of elbow room. So I don't know why people get, like, I understand when people like flying to LAX to JFK or, you're doing international stuff, maybe it matters. But like, for the most part, why are people so upset about flying Frontier? It's like, it's the same flight. Save a couple $100 for it. And again, anyway. But the moon in Sag, or the moon in Libra sextiling Venus and Sag, is like sitting next to a fun airplane person. I can think of so many stories of situations I've been sitting next to an airplane. One time was when I was coming back from San Francisco, and there was this lady, like maybe mid-50s. She seemed a little anxious or nervous because like she had the window seat and I had the aisle seat, and I like locked eyes with her, and like I went straight to there and I plopped down and I just like gently went to her ear and I was like, "Aren't you glad I'm not a fat person?" And she busted out laughing. And so we chit-chatted, and then the two girls in front of us, we started chit-chatting. They buy us all drinks. We're all having a good time. That's how I look at Wednesday, is like, again, connecting with the people that are around you and just having a good time, being joyous. Like, I'm sure some of you are going to get offended at that. I was like, "Oh my God, fat people." But it's true. If you're offended on the fat people thing, buy a Southwest ticket, I guess, at this point. But I just think connecting with the people around you, it's actually a funny story about this morning. I'm just on a ranting level today, but this is a good example. This morning, I was outside smoking a cigarette after I got my coffee. I live in like downtown Denver. A homeless man came up to me and asked me for a cigarette. Now, 9 times out of 10, I don't give them to them anymore. I'm sick of the fentanyl addicts. I'm sick of the screaming and the poop and the needles. It's like giving a stray cat food. I'm just not going to do it. But this guy was like a traditional homeless man. Like, he was very nice. Something seemed off, but he didn't seem intoxicated. He didn't seem like, maybe he was intoxicated. He just didn't seem like, with the fentanyl nowadays, people are like zombies and they're like, like, it wasn't that, which is like 90% of the homeless people here. They just look like zombies. He looked like, again, I say a traditional homeless man because he had like this staff, and the staff had like a shoe and some other thing. He had these kids' glasses and one lens was popped out, and he was just goofy and he was in a good mood, and I couldn't deny him a cigarette. Like, he was like, he said, like, he was so quick too, like so Sagittarius, like when he asked me and I like turned around, I was on my phone. He's like, "Oh, you on the Twitters? You on the Instagram? I'm on those too now." And then he just starts going off. He's like, "I'm not on the blues. I'm not on the clears, blah, blah, blah." And I was just like, whatever. And so I gave it to him, but he was very fun. That's the kind of way I look at the moon in Libra, making that sextile to Venus, is that there's some sort of fun connection to make with somebody within your general vicinity. It's a sextile, right? Like, it's not like you are making this amazing friendship connection right here. It's like the person that you sit on the plane, or the homeless man just so happens to be like a goofy person who seems actually sane and like nice to speak with, gives you a funny story for the day. I really like Wednesday. So we get to Thursday, and this is when the moon is going to be conjoining the South Node in Libra and then making a sextile to Mercury. So the issue with the moon conjoining the South Node in Libra is it's a K2 conjunction, right? There's something draining. There's something exhausting. What's really weird is in my client work, this is something I've often forgot about, but it keeps coming up, is the South Node keeps bringing things from the past into people's lives. I always forget to talk about that because I'm never like thinking about that. But the South Node brings people or situations back from the past. And I think that's important to just note as the South Node continues to go through Libra as we go through the rest of 2024. But the moon conjoining the South Node can bring that kind of vibe of, again, something from the past kind of coming up, maybe specifically with a relationship. But the moon conjoining the South Node is, I think, emotionally draining and exhausting, especially with people. It's like, maybe Wednesday when the moon sextile Venus, if you're like me, I can go out to bars or a club for an event. If it's just a Saturday night and there's nothing to do, so we go out to a bar or a club, I'm not going. Like, it's just, I'm not going to go. I don't have the energy for it. And the moon conjoining the South Node is like, all right, your friends are really drunk and they're dragging you here, they're dragging you there, and you're just kind of exhausted with it. There's some sort of emotional thing, some sort of emotional dragging or lagging or a draining situation that's kind of going on, possibly with some sort of a relationship with someone else. But the moon will then make a sextile to Mercury, where can I think of an example? The only example I could really think of is like when you're like at a bar and your friend's drunk or whatever, doing something else, and you end up chatting to the person next to you, and it's, another airport story. I was flying to Vegas this past May, and flight got delayed because like they were doing reconstruction on the tarmac or on the runway in Vegas. It still doesn't make sense to me. And I sat next to this like oil tycoon guy, like total frat dude, like looks like he inherited his father's oil business, talked and spoke like it, but he was fucking funny. I would like frat dudes that look like they come from wealth. They might be dicks, but they're really funny most of the time. So that was a fun conversation. But the moon is not the most important part about Thursday. Thursday's most important part is Mars ingresses into Capricorn. If you watched my 2024 year ahead horoscopes, January is the hustle and it's the grind. The reason I really like this January is because if you want to get things done, now is the time to do it. You might say, Cameron, well, the hustle grind culture is toxic, or, but I don't want to, and I'm so exhausted from the holidays. You might have other situations later on in this year that take away from you or distract you from the things that you want to get done. If you wanted a time to just focus and get things done that you absolutely want to prioritize, now is good. Mars is exalted in Capricorn. There are things like domicile, where Mars owns Scorpio and Aries. There are things like detriment, where Mars does not like being in Libra or Taurus. There are things like exaltation, where a planet is honored and the planet is a more than welcomed guest. It has all of the power without all of the responsibility. And then there's things like fall, where it's like the opposite. And, you know, people get so hung up on these terms of like detriment. Like, again, I talked about this last week. People get so upset with like, oh, you said Jupiter's in detriment, it's going to be so bad. It's like, Jupiter's still Jupiter. And, you know, if you're like me, I have a lot of, like, I got a comment a long time ago where someone's like, you have all trines in your chart, so you must be so good, and you don't understand how life is so hard for 8th and 12th house people. I'm like, if you took a look at my chart and you just knew a little bit about astrology, you'd be like, oh, yeah, that shit sucks. I've got Mars right on my descendant, fallen ascendant ruler, squaring its lord, fallen on K2. It's tough out there. But I don't make excuses about why my life's so shitty because I was born this way. No, I just have different circumstances that I have to work with. And there's times where I'm able to use those circumstances to my benefit. And there's other times where I can't do these things that normal people would do in the same way that they would do in order to get ahead. And I have to do things differently. And I've accepted that. And that's why I think you guys should too, and stop blaming your birth charts on everything. But Mars is exalted in Capricorn. So we're not talking about detriment. Stop being worried about the term detriment. Things are going to be good for you. You just have to learn how to navigate your own, again, opportunities and downfalls. But Mars is exalted in Capricorn. Mars is about energy, drive, ambition, fights, conflicts. Mars in Capricorn reminds me of like, again, like fighting with the system, or like fighting with like receipts. Like there's like a structured order to things. Like it's again, it's very structured and rigorous. But Mars in Capricorn is, you know, there's times in your life where you get up for work and you're tired and you don't want to go to work and you kind of half-ass, versus there's other times where it's like, man, you're waking up on time, your schedule's on lock, you're crushing it in work, and you're just in that vibe, you're in that frequency, you're in that flow. That's what Thursday is. We get about 5-6 weeks of Mars in Capricorn. Use it to your advantage. What you need to get done needs to start getting done now. February will also be a continuation of that. Once we get to about March and April, we're a little bit distracted with other things going on. Get the work done that you need to get done now. Put in the effort, put in the labor, become exalted by the labor. You know, I seen this meme, and it's like the depressing soy jack face, where it's like me trying to think of, you know, my education and what I want to, you know, go to school for and what career paths are after that. And then it was like a really happy emoji face, and it was like me after I chop wood and cut grass all day. There's something so rewarding about labor. And so, not all of you, because you guys are on my channel and a lot of you are on the same page that I am, but there's so many people in the world, let's just say, that are so, they repulse at the idea of lifting a finger. They think work is this penalty that they've been given by life or by capitalism. And it's like, work and labor. Sure, do you need to be laboring 100 hours a week in bullshit conditions without food or water? No. But doing physical labor and putting your effort and your passion into something that you want to be proud of what you do, like, is so good for the soul. It's so good for the soul. And people are just afraid of it because they think hard work is like, oh my God, hard work, so bad, so scary. And I like, you know, your name and your reputation's on everything. Like, put work into it. Don't be afraid to do that. And what I love about Mars in Capricorn is this is the time where that is elevated, where if you want to feel literally exalted by your work, if you want to feel honored by your work, if you want to feel like you are putting in the effort and you are getting the rewards for it and things are going in that direction, this is the time. I don't care if you're a day chart and Mars is bad for you. I don't care if Mars is angular for you and it's like, oh my God, no. It's like, if you just put in the effort, even if things go left or right, you will get the rewards that you're looking for. You just have to put in that honest effort in. We get to Friday, and the moon on Friday is going to go into Scorpio. Boo-hoo. It will sextile Mars, though, and it will trine Saturn. It'll go opposite Jupiter. There's no other way to put it. Like, the moon in Scorpio sextiling Mars in Capricorn is like, oh, your feelings are hurt. Like, what's that? Like, there's so many sayings that I genuinely believe in, but they're so corny to say out loud. And one of them is like, the ultimate revenge is success. That one is so corny to me, but it's so true. And like, the moon in Scorpio sextiling Mars in Capricorn is like, I'm hurt, but I'm going to work harder and do the thing. But that might be what you fucking need right now. You might be like, oh, cool, I've got these systems in play, I'm going to crush my work. Then boom, triggering event happens. You're boo-hoo, you're sad boy or sad girl. And what are you going to do about it? Are you going to pout? Are you going to relapse? Are you going to go into conditions that, you know, are your comfort zone? Or are you going to say, you know what? No, I have a system and a structure now that I can navigate myself through to still hit all my goals, and that will actually help me work through my emotions. That's the moon in Scorpio sextiling Mars in Capricorn. Like, you have a system, you have a structure, you have work to do that will help be an emotional outlet for the things that you need to do. Even if the moon's in Scorpio, like, you are going to be in like revenge mode. And then the moon will trine Saturn. Again, with Saturn and Pisces, there has to be this like emotional maturity, this spiritual maturity with, like, again, if Sagittarius is the outside world, like our outside idealism, like Pisces is like, okay, sure, you might believe that all these things are possible, but do you actually feel that on the inside? And I just think Saturn and Pisces is like emotional, spiritual maturity. And I think the moon in Scorpio trining Saturn after that sextile to Mars is like, hey, I'm growing up. I'm doing the things I need to do. Awesome. And then the moon will go opposite Jupiter. The problem with the opposition to Jupiter is, again, these two planets are opposite. There will be this frustration that things aren't happening faster, that things are not happening faster, and that things are need to be happening faster for you to, you know, be more fulfilled. The good news is Jupiter is direct. We have 6 more months of Jupiter in Taurus. And then we get to June and Jupiter goes into Gemini. Enjoy Jupiter in Taurus while it's here. It's now direct. It's moving forward. Sure, it's a little slow, but it's going to get gaining in speed here very, very soon. And I look at the moon in Scorpio opposite Jupiter in Taurus. It's like, if you're looking for the instant gratification, if you're looking for the instant reward, that's where you get failure, because you're expecting you want the result immediately. You want it to be like Amazon. Where you need to put the value is in the effort that you put in and the consistency. Like, for example, if you start any business or any venture you want to because of, let's say, the money, that's not how you're going to get fulfillment. You have to start because you want to help people. You have to start because you're passionate about that thing, that you have something to share. You have some sort of value to give to people, and the money's going to come with it. That moon in Scorpio opposite Jupiter and Taurus is like, hey, you are maybe not getting that instant gratification that you want, but are you going to let that stop you? Or are you going to trust the system? Are you going to trust the plan? Are you going to trust the operations that you have laid out in order to achieve that? That's kind of the goal by the end of Friday. So then we get to Saturday. The moon will be in Scorpio opposite Uranus and Taurus. Like I always say, expect some upheaval. But it's one of those things too where, you know, have you ever said, oh, I can't do it, but then you do it, and you kind of look back and you're like, man, I didn't want to do it, but I did it, and I feel kind of good. That's the vibe on Saturday. There's some emotional, distraught energy. There is some upheaval. Plans will go a little bit, awry. There will be some, again, and it's like the last thing you need. Like the moon in Scorpio opposite Uranus and Taurus is like, you're already butthurt. The last thing you need is some other big disruption going on in your life. It really is the last thing that you need. But I want you to have that resiliency. I want you to be resilient people. I don't want you guys to just be like, the moon's in Scorpio and that's why my life sucks. Like, we got to make a better name for astrology here. But in order to do that, like, you guys have to be like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, brand ambassadors, essentially. Like, make a good name for astrology by like using this tool in a like super positive way. In a super positive way means like you might be going through, hard times. And what's amazing about astrology is that it will show us, hey, fucking moon and Scorpio days may not be so good. But are you letting that be the excuse for you to not have a good day? Because the moon goes in Scorpio once every month. And, you don't need to have a bad 3 days every month, right? Or do you? I don't know. But I think the moon in Scorpio opposite Uranus is like, you will have some emotional upheaval. There is opportunity for breakthrough. That's the one thing I love about Uranus is there are breakthroughs evident there. You just kind of have to see that through. And maybe it's just the moon in Scorpio opposite Uranus. Something goes not according to plan. Things are unstable and you become more emotionally insecure about it. You could still be okay with, failing, but you can't beat yourself up over it, right? Like, tomorrow's a new day. You will get to the place where you want to be. But if you beat yourself up and you stop the momentum, then like that's on you. But if you say, you know what, like I didn't do that well. I didn't handle that situation well in hindsight. How can I do that better? That's how you're going to keep that momentum going. Then we get to Sunday. And on Sunday, the moon, while it's in Scorpio, will make, of course, that trine to Neptune. And, again, what's nice about the moon in Scorpio is the moon trining Neptune is the idealism, the romanticism. Again, it's the moon in Scorpio trining Neptune is like, I'll show them. Yeah, when I get to where I want to be, they'll all like. It just reminds me of like 12-year-old me being upset in my room when I was like super bullied or I felt like no one loved me, and I'm like making up these stories of like I'll be when I'm successful or when I'm blah 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 blah. And there's times where it's like the pain or the frustration, again, can be such a motivating factor, especially if you let your imagination run with creativity in terms of like, again, being like that, I'm so upset and I never want to feel this way again. How am I going to do, things better from here on out? Although the moon in Scorpio trine Neptune is not good for being like, if you have like let's say like a boyfriend and you're like, oh my God, what is he doing? Is he doing the thing I want? And, maybe he's talking to other women and what's going on? I didn't see him for like an hour that other day, and like playing out all the stories. Like that's what it's not good for. Like try not to do that one. Put the brake pedal on. But then the moon goes into Sagittarius. Again, a lot more focused on freedom, fun, adventure, feeling a lot more joyous. But then the moon will make an immediate square to Saturn in Pisces. Again, I think the more difficult part here is like where our moon and Sag wants to be like optimistic and idealistic. Like it's squaring Saturn is like, again, are you that guy? Are you the guy that wants to do these things? It's like, okay, you want to do all of the Sagittarius stuff. Cool. Well, who do you have to become to do that? And are you that? And I think there's this a little bit of a reality check. Like, and that's a good thing. Like, all right, I'm excited. I want to go here, but I'm not actually at that point yet. So what do I have to do to get to that point? And I think that's where all that comes in. Next week, Mercury squares Neptune once again, and for the last time for a while. Probably not until later in the year. We have the new moon in Capricorn. This is kind of getting the plans together. We'll talk more about that. We have Mars trining Jupiter, which is a big fucking... If you guys know what a Hellcat is, I know the cool people out there know what a Hellcat is. If you got an 800 horsepower engine, Mars in Capricorn trining Jupiter and Taurus is like, we're on a 4-lane road. There's no cops. There's no one around. There's a quote in what's that Jim Carrey movie? The God movie, and he's like, all this horsepower, no room to gallop. And you guys know what I'm talking about. Mars trine Jupiter. Pedal to the metal, it's go time. Mercury goes into Capricorn. Again, all of January is just switching us over into like work, grind, hustle mode, which I think is what is needed. I will leave you guys off with that. I love and appreciate you guys so much. With that being said, I'll see you guys next time.